If you feel like you can't stay motivated no matter how many times you try, this video is for you. I used to think that motivation was the reason why I kept falling off track, but after losing 13 kilos, I realized that motivation was not a problem at all. And once I stopped relying on it, everything finally became easier. I think the thing that most people do not realize is that you do not have a motivation problem. Motivation comes and goes. That is completely normal. And you think that you have to be motivated all the time, but that's not true. What you probably actually have a problem with is pressure, because you put pressure on yourself to have motivation all of the time, which is not realistic at all. Because motivation usually dies as soon as your expectations become too unrealistic. And that usually happens when you put too much on your plate, you think you can do it all, but instead everything just crashes and burns in the process. Because every time you say that it's a new week, you have new goals, it's Monday, you have to start over, that's exactly when avoidance kicks in and you just don't want to do it anymore because it feels like too much pressure. And like I mentioned before, motivation was never meant to last. Motivation is a spark. It's not something that is sustainable long term. It's something that you have once or twice and then you act on it. But it doesn't mean that it always has to stay for you to keep going. Because human motivation usually only peaks from 48 to 72 hours. So that is not that long. It's enough to get you going, but not enough to be sustainable. And if you set unrealistic goals during that time, it's normal that you would not keep going after the motivation dies. Because when normal life comes back and you're tired and you're low energy and hormones come up, you need to have something that doesn't just rely on motivation. You have to figure out what works for you and what is actually sustainable when motivation goes away, because it's inevitable that it will go away. I think another thing that is very common but isn't talked about enough is that motivation is confused for hope. Hope that this time will finally be different and something will change and you will actually be able to stick to it, that it's a fresh start and you're going to change your whole life. But having this kind of reset isn't really possible. You might think that it is, but that only creates overwhelm when you're going to realize that you can't stick to it long term. And then you're also going to get frustrated and you're going to have shame for yourself because you think that you have to stick to it, but you can't. And that just creates a whole cycle of feeling bad for yourself, having a bit of time to recover, getting motivation again, and then putting in hope, crashing again, and just going around and around in circles with this cycle of never being able to stick to it because it's just not sustainable. What actually does work though? I realized that usually the thing that works is momentum. It's not something big. It's not trying to change your life in a day. It's tiny little things, tiny little habits that keep you going. Even when the motivation screams at you to be doing the craziest thing possible, start small, because you're not going to be able to sustain it otherwise. If you have the motivation to start something small, something simple, and you think that you could do like so much more, still start small, because you're gonna burn out otherwise. You're not going to be able to keep going. And just use the motivation to do small things first and focus on those. Get those locked in and able to consistently do them. So then when the next spark of motivation comes, you might be able to add some more to that. You're going to build on it. And that's how your habits actually grow and get better, when you're able to build on them because you've already been consistent with it. Like for me, for example, I do the minimum effective dose. I talk about that a lot, about doing exactly what is required to see progress, to see change, and keep doing that even if it's the minimum. Because sometimes it's better to have that locked in and then being able to adapt when it doesn't work anymore, when something comes up. But at least you have that locked in and you have that habit going, especially with just making good enough choices. They don't have to be perfect. They just have to be good enough. They have to be better than what you usually would do. What also helps me sometimes is like having meals ready, like a few meals, like either meal prepping or having just a few meals that you know are quick to make. You always have the ingredients at home and you can just throw them together, even if it's just like a sandwich, but like you have everything at home and it's easy to make that. Having a few meals ready, and even if it's just in your head, but like knowing what meals you like, what is quick, what works, that is a lifesaver, honestly. Same thing with like going to the gym or going on walks, even if it's just for 20 minutes, for 10 minutes, do it anyways. Start small. And those things, those habits, they compound over time, especially when you get bursts of motivation again sometime. Then you can build on it because you already have the proof that you can do it. You have the proof that you can keep going. Even if it's small things, you can trust yourself and you can build on that. And I think the shift that helped me the most when losing 13 kilos was focusing less on motivation. And I just tried to start making things easier to do. Removing every friction that you possibly can makes consistency easier. Putting out your workout clothes in the morning. I know it sounds so simple, but sometimes it really helps with the first step that you can take, and maybe putting out like your shoes by the door if you know that you want to go for a walk, preparing your meals beforehand, or even just writing down a few meals that you know are quick to make. You don't have to even prep them, just have them in your head, have them written down somewhere so that you know those are kind of like the things that you have to choose from and you have less decisions to make. Decision fatigue is a real thing. I think, especially with like losing weight, I'm not saying that you have to eat bland meals or anything like that. Choose things that you like. But sometimes it's so much easier to eat a few the same things over and over again if you don't get tired of it. Because if you actually keep doing that consistently, it's going to give you results at some point, you know? And also something really, really important, please stop punishing yourself for being human. Like, there are going to be days where you can't do everything. Even the bare minimum, sometimes it just doesn't work. Sometimes things come up. Sometimes life happens, you know? Don't beat yourself up about it. Just get back into it the next day. Like, it's no big deal. I think the all or nothing mentality and mindset is such a big thing that people struggle with, and I struggle with it as well. But honestly, it's the worst possible thing that you could do on your fitness journey, on your like wellness journey, because it's going to be a lifelong thing. It's not going to be something that you do for a few months and then it's going to be gone. You have to be okay with not being perfect because it's not going to be perfect. It's going to be life. Life is going to happen. You want to enjoy the moments that happen, you know? It doesn't have to be perfect. Enjoy life. And yeah, once I stopped needing motivation to keep going, that's exactly when I stayed consistent. And that's what you can do too. So yeah, if you're interested in just knowing all of the things about like calories and metabolism and all of these things, I filmed a video about it where I explain literally everything. So if you're interested, I'll link it on the screen right here. I hope you enjoyed. I hope this helped. And I hope that I see you in my next video. Bye.